We got a lot of recruiting scoop over the weekend at Under Armour Dallas up in Melissa. I made the trip up there, a little day trip to Dallas, and not too far of a drive for you. So let's go ahead and get this one going. Who was the alpha dog? Who was the best player that you saw on Sunday?
Um, we'll split it up by session. There's three different sessions: O line, D line, kind of running back, linebacker, and then receiver, tight end. DBs. The best offensive lineman there was Felix Ojo, no question. Won all of his reps, and also, these events are always hard because it'll be like, who do you think was the best? Because like who I think played the best at that event is different than who I think the best prospect is. Very rarely will you get the best prospect having the best performance, but that's what happened on Sunday with Felix Ojo. So, got to go him. On the D line, I don't know. I really loved blanking on his name, but the Houston commit out of Louisville. He just committed to Houston like last week. I remember what number jersey he was wearing, but he was really interesting, fun to watch. That's a kid that I think Houston will have to struggle to hold on to a little bit, maybe once more schools look at him. KJ Ford was pretty good out of Duncanville. As far as the linebacker running back session goes, I didn't get to get a ton of eyes on them. Was kind of assuming we were going through the same thing, just scrambling, trying to talk to as many O-line, D-line recruits as possible. So missed some of the running back linebacker session. But for DBs and receivers, loved what I saw from Donovan Webb, the safety out of Frisco Panther Creek, Texas target. He is a true safety in high school. Like very rarely will man up with players. Frisco Panther Creek also kind of brings him down to the box sometimes as like a kind of, I don't know, a hybrid rover corner safety linebacker mix, I guess. So a little bit out of what his usual, setting is for him, but he did really well. Liked what I saw from him. Taylor Mayo was pretty good. And then, on the pass catching front, I thought Trenton Yancey looked pretty damn good. Younger receiver at Duncanville, was originally at Arlington Lamar in the 2027 class, and one of three in-state 27 well, actually two now since Feaster reclass, but one of two in-state receivers with the Texas offer. And then lastly, forgot to mention him, John Meredith III out of Euless Trinity. This is a kid I love, currently unranked, but you look at him, watch him play, it's like there's no way in hell this isn't a top 247 kid eventually. True 6'2.5", plus wing, great kid, great head on his shoulders, and he can move exceptionally well at 6'2.5", and he is a legit barefoot 6'2.5". So that's pretty much it. I don't know. Anyone else stood out to you that I didn't hit on?
Not really. Tyrone Morgan out of Louisiana,
Yeah.
defensive lineman, looked great. He's one that I covered a lot over the last few months when I was covering Baylor. We have him as an 86 3-star. I feel like that will change pretty soon. I feel like he is a blue chip guy. LSU is getting in the mix there. Like I said, he's from Louisiana. But this defensive line group nationwide is not great. And it seems like Texas is still, looking at maybe some new options there. Haven't gotten a lot of guys in that position scheduled for OVs, and I'm not sure that they're really pushing for that many at this point. So this is just speculation, but maybe Tyrone Morgan could end up on a Texas board pretty soon. We know LSU is getting in the mix there. So he was great, but yeah, Felix Ojo. When the way that he looked on Sunday, there was a rep. He was going against someone that was probably the biggest guy that he faced, and maybe that's the only one where I thought, okay, he might get pushed back a little bit here. And I'm saying not even 3 yards. He gets that rep going and just dominated everyone there. I turned to our friend Greg Powers after probably the second rep. I said, this is the best player in the state. And I believe that. I don't think there's anyone as college ready. I don't think there's anyone with as much pure talent as Felix Ojo has. And we saw that. And that makes me feel like what we've been saying over the last few weeks, that Felix is, should be the number one get for Texas in this class. Knowing that, it's really important for a great offensive line class. Felix is going to be the one to kind of make sure that happens. And, I do feel that within year 2 at any program, even Texas, he'll be a front runner for a starting left tackle position. So
Yeah.
him, no one else impressed me to that level. I did like the way that the Booby Feaster looked. Wasn't as dominant as you may have expected, but there's no doubt that him reclassing is going to be just fine for him. He's not taking a step back. He will be ready. He's always been ready. I mean, the kid's been offered since he was an 8th grader, and had teams on him since even before then. So in terms of guys that we really wanted to see how they looked on Sunday, I think he impressed.
Yeah, no, liked what we saw from Feaster. With him, he's been a very muddy evaluation most of the time, I'd say, because this is a kid we heard about since middle school, like you said. This is a kid who entered his first day of high school holding already a dozen offers, if not 2 dozen. And he is currently behind Zayden Krempen as the second most offered prospect in the entire state, regardless of class. But the thing with him is there definitely has been lapses in concentration and effort, and that's fine. That's okay. I watched Colin Simmons take his entire senior year off if it wasn't 3rd and long, and that's fine. That is okay. But it makes it really hard for us to project you and actually accurately evaluate you when you half-ass, half of the reps or whatnot. And usually, it happens when after they've committed, gone through the recruiting process and they're just going through the last few months of high school and they let off the gas as seniors. That's usually when you see it. But with Feaster at times, I saw him play multiple times as a freshman, and I saw that as a freshman in high school. So that's kind of, muddied my evaluation of him when he turns it on. It's like, wow, okay, now I see it. But, tapping more into the full effort and, having less lapses in, I think, concentration is only going to benefit him going forward. And, I mean, it's not something I'm really worried about. Like, usually that gets coached out of guys, once they get to college and, they realize, okay, yeah, I'm not the best, I'm not the most talented, most God-gifted player on this team anymore like I was in high school. Something's got to give, and usually it will. So, again, I'm not really worried about it with Feaster, but just always an interesting evaluation. And, man, Ojo, he gets me so excited for his future, man. Like, going through the photos I have of Under Armour Dallas, the amount of times it's him going against, a kid who has 20-plus offers, a dozen offers, and the kid is trying to bore rush him or do whatever move. In every single photo, Ojo's arm isn't even fully extended, and the kid still can't reach him. And his arm is not even – his elbow isn't even locked. It's not even fully extended. And, yes, he's only 275 pounds right now. But with the frame space he has, he can easily hold north of 300 and hold the right 300 pounds as well, which is important because right now there's not a ton of body fat on him, at least, in relevance to other offensive tackle prospects at this stage. And the thing with Ojo that really, really gets me exciting, this is a young kid for his class. This is a kid who won't turn 18 till like 6-7 months after he's already early enrolled on campus. That means something because it means his physical development, mental development, everything. He's just now starting to tap into it, and he's in the same class as kids that are, 18 to 24 months older than him, but they're in the same grade, and he's already better than them. So stock up for Ojo. Also love, he's a competitor. He already played in the All-American Bowl and still showed up to this camp. He had really nothing else left to prove. He already has every offer in America. He's already ranked as a 5-star, and he's already played an All-American. So the fact that he shows up kind of shows you what he has between the ears, and it's a great mental eval. Also, really, really smart kid. Also on the varsity basketball team. Also on the varsity track and field team. So I love literally everything about Felix Ojo, and I'm very happy that the rest of the industry I feel like is starting to come around on him being OT1 in the state of Texas. Since Turntine and him dropped their non-district highlights, I've kind of quietly been pushing the agenda. I think Ojo is the guy, but with what, how centered and focused the Texas market has been on Turntine, didn't really want to just come out, stake my flag. But, behind the scenes for a while, I felt like Ojo was the guy. I think Ojo is the guy now. I think other people realize that, and I also think Texas realizes that. Talking to him a bit off record, he does truly actually feel like he is offensive tackle one on Texas's board, and I think he is too. So I think Turrentine's right behind him, but it is so important that he actually feels like he's the number one guy, because oftentimes schools are telling 3 kids that, and none of them feel like that because, they're looking on Twitter and seeing, oh, all the writers are writing about this one kid, not all 3 of them. But now that one kid is becoming Ojo when it used to not be him. So, again, love everything about him. Love what we saw on Sunday. Only makes me feel more confident in his abilities headed forward.
Yeah. We've talked probably enough about Ojo, but there was a little bit of recruiting news on him. I believe it was on Thursday, or it might have been Wednesday, but we didn't have a chance to talk about it on Thursday. He released a top 8. Obviously, Texas was there. Texas is the only in-state school still in the mix. A&M had been involved at one point, but the connection was really never there. I think they're probably a little bit upset they're not even in this last group, not being mentioned at all. There's no talks of an official visit. He's got one just about ready to go at Texas. Ohio State is the other school to watch out for here. It feels like, and he's been pretty open about this, that Texas and Ohio State are the top 2 right now. And everyone else is kind of following. I believe Oklahoma, Florida, and Ole Miss are the other ones kind of on that second level. Colorado was also mentioned, and this is around the time of the year when Colorado is always mentioned for top players in the state, like we've seen the last 3 years. I don't think they'll have a chance with him, but Jordan Seaton played well as a freshman.
He's not. Felix Ojo's not going to Colorado.
He's not going to Colorado.
I had a funny conversation with him about this actually. I'm like, so you're top 8. Like, how many schools have hit you up and been like, yo, you need to redo this list. We need to be in there. And he's like, a few. And he's like, actually, I really have a top 9. And I'm like, oh, well, who's 9? And he's like, Colorado. Like, if it was a top 8 instead of top 9, they would have been on there. And I'm like, so they're in 9th place? And he was like, what? And I'm like, bro, like, all right, I get it. Throw the logo on there, but like, everyone knows you're not going to Colorado. So, I thought that was funny. That was interesting. He usually is pretty straightforward and not a ton of fluff or, hype around the recruitment. Again, pretty straightforward. But like you said, Texas and Ohio State are the main 2. It is interesting with Ohio State because Justin Fry left for the Arizona Cardinals. That was, the Buckeyes as a line coach. The very last day he had as an Ohio State coach, he was in the DFW Metroplex visiting prospects. He saw Zayden Krempin that day. He saw Drew Evers and Felix Ojo. I'm sure he saw others, but those are the only ones I know. So Ojo was one of the last kids he ever saw. Hours later, after he's at Lake Ridge, the news breaks he's going to the Arizona Cardinals. That same night and every single day since then, the entire Ohio State staff, including Ryan Day, was calling him, being like, hey, we don't have an O-line coach yet, but we're going to take care of this. It's going to be someone good. You're still going to be our top guy no matter what, blah, blah, blah. Really making him feel like a priority. They hire the offensive line coach, believe from Notre Dame or Penn, or no, it was one of the Virginia schools.
Virginia Tech,
that's what it was. And they've already communicated over the phone several times, but Ohio State will be interesting. He's already been up there too, so it's not like they still need a visit from him to really be legit. But Texas and Ohio State outside of that, kind of I think a crapshoot or a revolving door is pretty fluid. 3rd, 4th, and 5th. But like you said, Texas and Ohio State are the main ones for him. And he said those are also the 2 schools contacting him the most, recruiting him the most, which I thought was interesting. Very rarely is Kyle Flood, in Texas actually contacting one of their top targets the most. I know that sounds crazy, but that's just like the way Texas and Flood usually operates. So